to the Kaysville City Council meeting for, what's the date? September 15th, 2022. Thanks for being here. I will provide the opening, and then after my prayer, we will stand and repeat the Pledge of Allegiance. Thanks. Our dear Heavenly Father, we're so thankful for this opportunity we have to serve. We ask you to please be with us as we make decisions and make decisions that are in the best interest of the community and the residents. We're grateful for the free country that we live in and for the rights and the opportunities that we have that come with being Americans. We're grateful for this city, and we're grateful for our residents and the opportunity to come together tonight. And we say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, our first item of business would be call to the public, and we don't have anyone signed up to speak, and so we will move on to our next item, which is the swearing in of our youth city council. We're excited to have great city council members. I'll invite you up in just a minute. We have Holly Francis, who is serving as mayor, Ben Anderson, mayor pro temp, Maggie Scott, Grace Mabey, Kayla Sisney, Michaela Heath, Hallie Harding, Lindsay Jepson, Ruby Jane Hollingsworth, Betsy Dow, Trevor Hayes, Maddie Miller, Kate Miller, Mia Schimmer, Holden Dow, Natalie Barlow, and McKay Clemens. We are so grateful for your service, Youth City Council, and please come up to the front, and I'll do my first swearing in.
Oh yeah, up front, center. Come on.
Okay, so raise your right hand, and you'll say, you repeat after me, but I'll say I, and then you'll say your name. Okay. So I do solemnly swear that I will support, obey and defend the Constitution of the United States, and the Constitution of the State of Utah, and that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity. Thank you. Can you stay up here with the picture?
Congrats, you guys.
We really appreciate our youth city council members. They participate in activities with us throughout the year, and they learn about city government. So grateful for them and excited for them to have this opportunity. Okay, I'll now turn the time over for the swearing in of new police officers to Chief Oberg.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I appreciate the opportunity to introduce you to two new Kaysville police officers tonight. We have, first of all, I got with me Lieutenant Benoit. He's our new patrol lieutenant. And tonight we're going to swear in Noelia Sarmiento. I can't roll the R's, but that's close as I can get, and Carter Moser. And if I can have you two come on up with me. There's Carter, right back there. Noelia just finished the police academy last Thursday, is that graduation? So she's been doing admin stuff this week, but starts tomorrow night on her FTO. So we're excited to have her. This is Carter. He graduated with Hayden, the last officer we swore in, and he's been on training already, doing a great job. We've got a great young department, and I think these two are going to fit in very well, and hopefully you'll see their faces, but not on a traffic stop in the near future.
Most likely.
Memorize that one.
Traffic stop,
So
John.
if Emery will swear them in, then we'll have their family members pin their badges on, and we'll get out of here.
Good.
Okay, Tracy, raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Carter Moser,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
to support and defend
to support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
to perform my duties
to perform my duties
as a police officer
as a police officer
for Kaysville City
for Kaysville City,
faithfully with honesty, integrity,
faithfully, with honesty, integrity,
and fidelity.
and fidelity.
Can I have you sign these?
I guess we can wait for their families, yeah. I guess they'll get pinned first.
Okay, Carter, you got somebody here to pin your badge on? Dad?
His dad looks young enough to.
He does. That's what I was thinking.
Don't leave. Well, at least go shake your hands.
Don't stab her.
She's got a gun now.
She's got a gun.
Yeah, she's got it. And a taser.
Oh, and a taser.
Is it the fire department just sliding?
Hey.
See, we get you go both ways. Why? It's different sort of a zipper thing.
That was one of the best swearing ones right there.
Yeah, Anne Marie, you were amazing.
Thank you,
Oh.
families.
And now we have Cole.
Thanks, Chief. Right, now we have a department presentation, and I'll turn the time over to Director Cole Stevens.
Who'd you bring to support you, Cole?
I brought my HVAC mechanical guy that's up on the roof trying to figure out
Yeah,
why our system keeps tripping every Thursday night.
yeah.
So I talked to him earlier in the week and said, hey, can you be here just in case?
Oh, awesome, thank you.
So he was prepared to come tonight to see if we can catch the RT unit in the act of not working. So anyway, thank you for allowing me to present annual department report for Parks and Recreation. Hopefully you've been able to review the slide. I promised the mayor and Shane that there's 19 slides. I'm not going to spend 5 minutes on every slide, so I'll try to keep it short. But if there's any questions at the end, please feel free to ask what they are. So hopefully that slide is coming up here soon. So. Okay. You can go to the next one. So just kind of give you an overview of our department responsibilities, Parks and Recreation. It's a little bit more than what it sounds. We have parks, trails, recreation, cemetery. All city facilities fall under our purview, community events, and then any other public property, rights of way, things of that nature that maybe aren't constituting as a park, but that are public property nonetheless. And then we have 2 citizen boards that we work with, the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board and then the RAMP Advisory Board, which is new for 2022. You can go to the next one. So just a brief overview of our, I won't go through by names for all of them, but that's kind of an overview of our makeup of our staff throughout our department. I just will say that all of these names listed up there are awesome individuals, and without every single one of them, nothing we do would be the way that it is. And I just want to give kudos to all of them for all of their hard work. They serve, whether it's park, cemetery, or in our recreation division. Go to the next one. So that's the cemetery. That's a good looking view of the cemetery. It doesn't quite look as green right now after the drought. But the cemetery dates back to all the way to 1865. It's one of the oldest facilities in Kaysville. It is the oldest public property that we maintain back to 1865. Go to the next one. We like to show annually just kind of an interment history report. We've tracked all the way back to 1983 is kind of where our records first become really accurate as far as interment history. And so in calendar year 2021, we had 191 interments. In 2022, year to date, as of the 1st of September, we were at 131. If we keep on track with our monthly numbers, we'll surpass 191 in 2022. And so that growth is just going to keep going. The other factor we track, you can go to that next one, is just for our record, just so we can gauge where these interments are coming from, we track resident versus non-resident. Resident is considered anybody that lives within the city boundaries of Kaysville. Non-resident is, of course, anybody outside of Kaysville. Prior to 2016, FY16, FY15, those numbers were reversed, where we were tracking a lot of non-residents higher than residents. And so we instituted some fee changes as well as the way we sell burial rights so that the non-residents, not to make it more difficult, but the residents get a little bit first right to some spaces. And so you can see in FY22, the numbers were 115 resident, 85 non-resident. And then go to the next slide, and I'll give a little bit further explanation on those. The cemetery in size is 22.4 acres. We average about just under 4 interments per week. Some weeks are higher. The highest week this year was 9, which is really taxing on staff when there's 9, figuring that each burial from the time it comes into the office to when the grave is closed is about a 6 to 8 hour process by the time they meet with staff and all that stuff. And so when you're doing 9 a week, that's a lot more hours than we have in the day. Burial rights right now, we've put an administrative pause on selling rights, and we're only doing it at need until Plat H is ready to be platted in the spring of 2023. We're waiting for some corner markers to come that are granite, so it just takes some time. So the reason we put a pause is just so that in Plat G, we don't sell out before we have room. So there's still plenty of space. We're not selling out that fast, but we are selling out in space. Cemetery, there's a difference between when we say sold out and occupied. Sold spaces, the right to those spaces is what we're trying to gauge. The cemetery will be doing business for years and years to come, just with the ones that have already been sold but maybe have not been occupied. And you all know when I say occupied, what that refers to. So just kind of give a forecast of what we're looking in the cemetery in long, short-range plans. FY23, we have a retaining wall next to the cemetery office. It's being bid out right now. The RFB should close October 4th for that. It's an old retaining wall that's tilting and starting to fall, so we need to replace it. And then our future plans, FY24, of course, this is all budgetary considerations, but we want to start the design of a memory cremation garden area. FY24, one of the things that's coming faster than maybe we anticipated is in our old section, redesigning our irrigation system. Some of that stuff dates back to the 1950s. That's old ductile pipe, which as it ages, the hydraulics of the pipe start to degrade and we're losing a lot of pressure. So unfortunately, that's going to be a fairly labor and expensive. But we at least need to get the design started so that we know if we can phase it and that type of stuff. Cemetery expansion additions, I keep throwing it out there every year, but in about 10 to 12 years, probably prior to that, but in about 10 to 12 years, if we keep up the pace that we're currently, once we go back to allowing pre-need sales, we have about a 10 to 12 year life with the existing land that we have in the cemetery. And so in that time frame, there's a lot of things that we can do to slow that down, speed it up. But there will be a time in the future here, probably within the next 3 to 5 years, that the council will need to decide, do we look for an expansion of the cemetery? Do we say this is it? Those are questions that are coming faster than we anticipated 10 years ago. So,
Cole, just real quick, I hate to interrupt you and put you on the spot, but like, what do you see, I mean, from your standpoint? Because you experience this every day, we don't. What would you recommend? I mean, are there some thoughts that you have about the future of the cemetery?
yeah, I mean, there are. So, one thing, we do have a 10-acre parcel that's farther up Crestwood. It's right next to Crestwood 89,
Okay.
that the city currently owns. So that's a target area for possible expansion of the cemetery. There wouldn't be any land acquisition costs, but there would be the development costs, which are, give or take, or $200,000 to $250,000 an acre to develop by the time you count roads and all the things that goes into there. So that's, a couple, $2 to $3 million to develop. And of course that can be phased and all that stuff, but that's a potential site. It's interesting what different cities are doing. Clearfield just opted to get out of the business. They're not expanding their cemetery at all. They just said, this is it, and then they're gonna let the private sector take over in Clearfield. Centerville was just the opposite. They just passed a bond. They bonded for $7 million specifically for cemetery. They have to do some land acquisition, so that's why their cost is quite substantially higher than maybe ours would be with us already having land. So it's a service that the city's provided, as I mentioned that earlier slide, all the way to 1865. So it would be a hard one to say we're done. That will be a council decision to make that decision. If we want to go that route, then there would be some funding that would have to come from somewhere. So,
Good to know.
yep. Cremations having a slight uptick in numbers. Those are slowly increasing every year. If you look at the industry across the spectrum, cremations are making up about 40% of all interments. We're not seeing that here. I think a lot of it's cultural, but even in Provo, they just did a cremation garden and their numbers have skyrocketed. So cremations pick up, then that furthers the life of the cemetery because a cremation takes much less space than a full adult. One sad thing in the cemetery and then one really cool thing. We lost 3 large spruce trees. They were 75 plus years old. We just had them removed last week. So if you get any complaints, we apologize. But they had contracted the Ips beetle, which is fatal to spruce trees. So we have gone in and treated all the other trees, spruce trees in the cemetery, with some injection to hopefully, if they do have it, that it will kill it and stop it. But these 3, unfortunately, didn't make it. So it does change the look of the cemetery. But I wanted to highlight this last, Bryce Chappell. He's a seasonal mow operator. He doesn't watch city council and doesn't even like any recognition. But he's been mowing the cemetery for us for 30 years. He just celebrated his 90th birthday last week. And so he's one of the cool things that we get to work with is just people like that who,
30
he's
years.
90 because he gets to come to the cemetery and mow 3 to 4 days a week. And so it's really cool. So if you ever are in the cemetery and see an older gentleman mowing the lawn, chances are it's Bryce. And so we're not sure how much longer he'll keep mowing for us, but he's been a great thing for us in the cemetery.
Does he live in the city?
He does.
Does
he
he?
lives just a few, probably 3 to 4 blocks farther south of the cemetery, up on the east side. So
Okay.
very cool guy.
Yeah.
You can go to the next one. You can skip. Just really briefly on our parks. Of course, the total acreage there, we have 150, almost 159 developed, and then 214 undeveloped. A large portion of that undeveloped is the Wilderness Park, which is at 140 acres. Trappers Field, would be the newest part that will be coming online here within the south side will be coming online next year. The north side, the RFPs actually were due yesterday. We got 5 submittals for engineer firms to work with us on the design. So we're going through the qualification phase with those to begin the design. And then construction would be estimated in FY24, of course, subject to budget approvals and whatnot. The third bullet point is probably the number one struggle we have in our park staff. And I'll wait till the further slide to talk a little bit about that, or you can go there. No, yeah, we can go back. So we track our seasonals based on the number of hours that they work, not necessarily a person, but the total number of hours that all of these employees work. And you can see, and we're not naive enough to say it's just us. We see it across the whole spectrum of everybody employed, any business owner, anybody. But this graph really illustrates what a significant drop we've seen in our seasonal employees. And our seasonals are typically kids that are on the park side are anywhere from age 18 to graduating from college, so 25, mid-20s. This is also the first year that we, in our recreation program, that we have not been able to hire enough 17 and year older kids to work evenings for scorekeeping. And so we've had to now, our umpires are now keeping score on the fields because we don't have enough of those kids to keep score. So if anybody has any solutions, we're open, but I don't think it's a problem that's going to solve itself anytime soon. So we're exploring options. One cool thing that the City Council approved in our budget year is we actually purchased a robot line painter.
Yeah.
It runs on GPS, and so it just arrived the other day, and our staff will get training on it next week. And what it will do is it will reduce typically a 3-man crew to go out and paint soccer fields, baseballs, football. It'll reduce that to 1 person
That's awesome.
that's needed to do that. So we're looking for some innovative solutions to kind of compensate for lack of staff there. Highlights: Hobbs Hollow Playground was replaced in FY22, Heritage Park Playground, and then Ponds Park Playground is in design right now in our FY23 budget year. A cool opportunity that we have is the Wilderness Park parking lot in FY23. We have some funding sources, a state grant, a Davis County grant, and then some ramp funds. That ramp stuff will be coming to the City Council in October. That was recommended by the ramp board. And then I won't highlight the water conservation. Everybody knows, so I'll just leave that. But we are doing our part, so I'll just say that. You can go to the next one. I'm not going to talk about these slides at all. I just do them in. These are part of our Parks and Recreation Master Plan that was done with that survey. It was part of the general plan, and now it's going to be a standalone document that our Parks and Rec Advisory Board will review to help us guide going forward. So you can read that as your own. Same thing with these next two slides. Let's highlight this a little bit. Just one of the things that came out of the survey was the desire for city to have some sort of a recreation center. Those are a lot of money, and so we're just exploring avenues in which public-private partnership, public-public partnership with the school district. Everything is being looked at to see how we can do that the best and economical way in Kaysville. But it is a huge need, and it is something that the citizens in that survey indicated that they want or would like to see. You can go to the next one. Recreation. I highlight this. I just want to talk about this. The little girl in the center, that's kind of what we do recreation for. Whether it's a girl or boy, it doesn't matter. It's just for these kids to have the opportunity to go out and to play and to experience any kind of activity that they might want, and just to see her with her arms in the air is just it makes us feel good for what we try to do. Next one. Highlighting our Parks and Recreation reservations from September 21 to October 2022, our park pavilions had 454 reservations. And now these are reservations that actually reserve through our system. We don't count any of the first come, first serve. There's no way to quantify that. But we had 454 just through our recreation software. We had 504 courts that were reserved, whether that's tennis, pickleball, sand volleyball. We had 74 rentals in our recreation building, and then our East Mountain Wilderness Park campsites, we had 121 reservations. We know at the Wilderness Park there's a lot more people camping that are reserving it, but these are the ones that actually have reserved. And it's only a $10 fee to reserve the space. It's nominal just so that we can track who's there. Our recreation program, we're targeting kids ages 3 to adults. Until you can't move anymore, basically. A couple of new programs we added this year. We added a UOVA volleyball tournament, which was an outdoor volleyball tournament out at Barnes Park. We did Kaysville Quest, which was a scavenger hunt. We ended up with 17 teams, mainly upper teenage groups that scavenged. It's kind of like the Questable.
Yeah.
Cotopaxi thing that they do.
Yeah,
We kind
it was
of mimicked
fun.
off that. And then something that's going on right now is our family super sport, which is just a family thing on Monday nights. We have 10 families in Kaysville. It's the first year that are doing that. Another cool thing, in February we celebrated this 50th anniversary of Title IX, which was Women's Sports Day, and we'll continue to hold that. And then, of course, there's a list of all the programs we offer, and then again, the coordination with Davis Gym is always challenging. But that just gives you the numbers of our top 5 programs that we service from a recreation standpoint. Go to the next one. Our citizen boards, and these are we're excited. We have a good Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. They were helpful in creating and establishing the master plan in 2022. We're holding monthly meetings, visiting parks, coming up with ideas for future. And then they're also involved in assisting in all of our community events. Of course, you know the RAMP Advisory Board was formed in the beginning of this year. They met last week with our first round of grant applications that will come forward to recommendation to the City Council in October. And then in all subsequent years, those recommendations will just be part of the normal budget process. But this year we were a little bit late with the board, and so, but in the following years it'll just be part of the normal budget process. And that's also a great board and do a lot of good things. Highlight our community events. You've all probably been to all of them, so we won't elaborate too much on those, but they're fun, and we're excited to continue to do all of them. Just a little highlight on our facilities, a couple things I wanted to point out here. In FY23, we're going to hopefully increase some parking lot lighting. In this parking lot, in the evenings, it's a little dark. The Operations Center, we have those projects are both out for bid right now, HVAC partial replacement and then the roll-up doors. Then the fire station, we just completed that last week. Some lighting improvements in their bays and change-out areas. Total, we manage 80,100 square feet of maintained facility space. That's custodial, HVAC, general maintenance, improvements, all of the above. So it's, there's quite a few of that. And then this is my last slide, and I'll just end with I won't read the book, but I'll end with a very side quote because I think it means a lot to me, and I like what it says. It said, "Everybody needs beauty as well as bread, places to play in and pray in, where nature may heal and give strength to the body and soul." And so I think that's what Parks and Recreation does for the community, is provide those outlets for families, whether you just want to go for a picnic or playing a sport or just go for a walk. But I think they add a lot of value to our community, and the other stuff on that slide kind of indicates that. So that's kind of the report for 2022. Any questions? If not,
Thanks, Cole.
Oh, yeah, I got questions.
okay.
Just two. One of the ones that, just the labor shortage thing to me was the most, stood out a lot on your slide. And I guess I'm curious if there's a way that you've thought that we can help you with that, or how has that affected your other employees, your full-time employees, and is
So-
everything okay?
Yeah, so we are very appreciative. We did get a full-time cemetery position this year, which has helped greatly. It does strain them. We do have a little bit more overtime this year than we are accustomed to, and that's just simply for the fact that we have so much to do and there's just not enough time to get it done. It does play. I think they're all getting worn out at this point. I got one, Andy, I'll speak for him. He's one of our parks lead worker. He's in charge of all our ball field prep. He's usually got about a 3 to 4 man crew that goes around and preps all the fields. Well, this fall, it's him. Because we can't, if we take other full-time, then other things suffer. And so it's just a struggle to get up there. I mean, of course, yeah, more people, but I don't know that that's going to solve it. We'll always need seasonal people at the end of the day, no matter how many full-time we get. We just, for the one, if we can get them to apply, they stay and they love working. Our struggle right now is just getting them to even apply. So we've raised our rate, raised our starting wages. That doesn't seem to be making a big difference in attracting people. So we have an annual department meeting in December, and that's one of the topics is, I've already told all my staff, is let's start being creative in how we can try to attract people.
Get the jobs out there.
This year we had if you referred someone and were working for us and you referred for the seasonals and they worked for at least 2 paychecks, they got a little bit of a bonus. Just
It's great.
refer your friends
Yeah.
to come and work. That worked a little bit, but not like we had hoped. So
I have a question. Is there an ability to are hours flexible for folks who want to do it part-time, like in the evening, like a side hustle type of thing?
we're totally open to any creativity we can get.
Yeah.
The only downside in the evenings, we're limited on what we can and can't do, just because there's so many people in the parks.
Yeah.
So, but we're working with college kids right now that if they can work Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 4 hours a day, we'll work them. So we're very flexible on what one can have them do. So if you have any friends or family that are
Right,
looking for
send them
work,
your way.
hey, send them our way.
This will be my last question. Could you update the council on the status of the RFP for the old library?
Trappers, or the old library. So I've, yes.
You were going to ask that?
So we've got the draft. I've created the draft. I've sent it to Shane and Melinda for review. We're scheduled to meet here in 2 weeks. Our goal is to have it out the first part of September. So the draft is.
You mean October?
Sorry, October, yes. So hopefully we'll meet here in a couple weeks after they've had time to review it and see what changes we want to make, and then it'll be ready to go. So that's where that's at.
Thank you.
Okay?
No other questions? Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Cole.
And
Appreciate
again, I
you.
apologize for the AC, so we'll, hopefully Blake's got it and he's listening. So,
It's been quiet on the roof, so hopefully he's doing something. Thank you. All right. Okay, do we have any conflicts of interest to declare? Anyone? No? Okay. Then we'll move on to 5 action items. So 5A, request to rezone .65 acres of property at 500 North Main Street from GC to RM. Turn the time over to Melinda.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Just a little bit of background on this application. It's from Elite Homes. We do have Blake Bastian here with us this evening for any questions you may have for him. The property is owned by the Dordens, but it's under contract with Elite Homes. It's 500 North Main. It's .66 acres, just over 28,000 square feet. Right now, there's a single-family dwelling on site. It's zoned GC commercial. The requested zoning is RM, and based on just the size of the property, the square footage would allow 10 dwelling units, although it will say it's a long and narrow parcel, which you can see here, and so it may be tricky to fit that many units on that site if it were to be approved. So this is just a view of the parcel there on Main Street. You can see there's a variety of different uses across the street, some light industrial, commercial, and we have the Hyde Park development that's there to the north and east of it. This just gives you a better idea from a more regional perspective of where the property is located. So one of the things we always like to look at is what does the existing zoning or surrounding zoning look like. You can see there is a variety of different zonings in the neighborhood there. We have R4, even have some healthcare down to the south and the east of the property. Most of it is zoned general commercial, and then you do have the R18 and some RM to the north. I just want to go over real quickly some of the differences between the general commercial zone versus the RM zone. That's something you always want to look at when you're possibly changing zoning. So the general commercial, it's a little bit difficult to compare to the RM, but there's no minimum lot size. With the RM, you have to have at least 8,000 square feet. There's really no density with the general commercial zone because residential isn't allowed. But again, with the size of the property, they could go to 10 with the RM. There's a minimum lot width in RM that doesn't apply to general commercial. Building heights are limited to 35 feet as the zone sits now. The RM would reduce that to 30 feet. There's a front setback with the RM that doesn't exist with GC, and same with the side setback and rear setback. There is a residential setback that requires any building would have to be at least 20 feet from any residentially zoned property. And then the RM zone has some additional requirements of open, usable open green space and outdoor storage. So we're now going to get to see our new general plan at work, and I will also just let the council know that this was an interesting process because when this item went to the Planning Commission, we had our 2019 general plan on the books. And midstream with this application, we adopted the 2022 general plan. So the staff report that was submitted to the Planning Commission is completely different than what I sent to you last week. And again, an oddity is that the 2019 plan had, I think, adequate information to support the application to be rezoned to RM. We'll go through this real quickly, but the 2022 general plan just doesn't have that information in it to support that. And one of the first things we like to look at when we are looking to rezone, now that we have a future land use map, is that detail. And it shows the property here to be used as mixed use. Some of the goals and objectives that the 2022 general plan contains as well is that we want to enrich our city center and downtown, and this would, I think, the redevelopment of this property would certainly do that. It also mentions that we want to provide diverse housing options, and so I think both of those and they're kind of polar opposites, but I think both of those support this rezone. But then we get into a little bit more detail with the goals and objectives, and most of those point to just keeping the property commercial or mixed use, and to look towards creating that city center district, as we kind of discussed in our workshop this afternoon. So some of those goals, again, make Kaysville City Center distinct and identifiable from adjacent properties. There were 2 objectives that were germane to this application. We want to improve commercial frontage and streetscapes along key corridors such as Main Street and 200 North. Obviously, if we are taking property out of general commercial and changing that to RM, we're not improving the commercial frontage, we're changing that to residential. It also speaks to improving the commercial profile and operations along the outskirts of the community and regional corridors. Another goal is to provide a range of housing options and price points that help ensure Kaysville is an affordable place to live. So again, there's a little bit of contradictory information, but as you'll see when we go through these, the rest of these, I think that in general, the majority of the points led to the recommendation of not having the RM zone go through. But we want to encourage diverse commercial uses to meet the needs of the community and visitors. Again, you can only do that when there is a commercial use that's being left on the property. Chapter 3, our housing and neighborhoods. We do have a goal to and an objective to provide a full range of housing opportunities to meet the economic, lifestyle, and life cycle needs for residents. Again, the RM rezone application would speak to that, but we go back to our chapter 5 and the two goals that were pulled from that. We want to promote Kaysville City Center redevelopment to strengthen commercial areas and then allow for mixed-use development in identified areas to generate more rooftops. There was a little bit of a nod to this in our earlier discussion, but with, I think, the changes that commercial and retail has gone through over the last couple of years, and also how we now collect sales tax, those rooftops are, I think, equally as important to making commercial sustainable. And most development, commercial development, really is trending towards that mixed use. So I wanted to show real quickly what concept plan the applicant had submitted with his application. Again, we're really talking zoning, which is the use of the property and not necessarily a project, but they submitted this, which showed that they could fit 8 units on the site. The Planning Commission meeting, we did talk about how it would be a little difficult to fit any more than 8. This was just some elevations of what those townhomes could look like. We have had a little bit of dialogue. I have had a little bit of dialogue with the applicant since the Planning Commission meeting, and getting a negative recommendation is a little uncommon. And based on the dialogue at the Planning Commission meeting, we did discuss, would this be a possibility for this property to have a mixed use project on it? And the applicant did submit this to me today, which shows that it probably would be feasible. It would change, obviously, the look of the product, but this just is kind of, I guess, an idea of what could be done if it were to be left as general commercial, or in RM with the mixed use. So back to the Planning Commission. We did mail public hearing notices. We mailed 79 of those, and then we do mail those to everyone within a 500-foot radius of the subject property.
Melinda,
Yeah.
would you go back to that potential concept?
Yeah.
I just wanted to. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
And I can pull that up again if the discussion leads to go to that. So this was heard at the August 11th Planning Commission meeting. They did hold a public hearing. I think I counted there were about 9 people that came and made comments during that meeting. The Planning Commission did vote 4-1 to recommend denial of the zone change request. And the reasoning for that was just the preference to keep the commercial space or to see a mixed-use project rather than losing that property to the RM zone. So we also received several emails that came through the Planning Commission through our public hearing form that we have on our website. And so between those emails, and I try and decipher to just kind of give the council a quick representation of what some of those concerns are, which they do seem to be the same concerns that we hear near every public hearing when we're talking about anything about density. But there was definitely a sentiment where, we're not favoring density, but against density. There were concerns about water availability, privacy, and the impacts to existing residences, especially those that back up to that Hyde Park development. Traffic is always something that's mentioned, crime. During the public hearing, one of the planning commissioners asked the members who were going to speak to keep in mind that building that's right there on Main Street at Hyde Park, that commercial building that's being there, or that's under construction there, and whether or not they would have a preference for the townhomes or that commercial building, and most indicated a preference for a commercial building as opposed to the residential use. Individuals always express concern about property values, and then there was a lot of dialogue in the meeting about, and I frankly just don't know how to decipher this because we're just one city, but there were many residents in the audience that feel like the eastern portion of the city has more than its fair share of medium density housing. But I, would look at the city on a whole and in its entirety versus trying to bifurcate the city and look at one side versus another side. I just think that's a tough place to try and figure out what's fair. So going back to the recommendation, I do think that the overwhelming majority of the evidence or the information in the 2022 general plan does lead to a recommendation of the denial of the rezone request, and then also that coupled with the Planning Commission's recommendation of denial.
Okay, thank you very much. We have 2 people signed up for public comment. Blake Bastian, are you here? Okay, will you come up to the microphone and state your name and your address, and you'll have 3 minutes, and there will be a timer.
Yeah, he's the applicant.
Oh, you're the applicant. Oh, okay, You want me to wait till I... Will you wait for just a minute? Yeah. Okay, thanks. Sharon Hadley. Yeah, thanks, I didn't know that. Sharon, thank you. Will you state your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
My name is Sharon Hadley, and I live at 501 North, 550 West, which is just on the other side of the fence from that property. One thing I would like to say is I feel like Elite Homes is trying very hard to adapt to what will be best for us. Privacy, as far as I'm concerned, is a big issue because those homes will look right down onto my patio and into my home. And so there's an issue, but I think he has tried very hard to adapt what he can to make this more possible. One of the questions that I have is, in the meeting that we had with the Planning Commission, we discussed, I thought, something about the fact that multiple housing should be spread around a city. And that is not what's happening in Kaysville. It's mostly down in that area. And I don't think I realized fully until we had that meeting how much commercial, how much multiple housing there is down in that area. It is affecting schools, which is something I didn't realize, that there's a big turnover, and as a result, the education is being affected in that area. The other thing that was brought up is we have a need for commercial property in Kaysville, and there isn't very much. And are we taking that out to be done commercially? Can it be done some other way? One of the questions I had as I discussed this with some of our neighbors today is what is going to happen if we do that one section? What's going to happen to all those other houses down the street that are commercially zoned but are being lived in as residences or rentals? Is it going to become part of that same type of thing? And I don't know if that's something you've talked about or thought about, but will we have multiple housing all down that area? And those are just some of the things that we've thought about, and that's, like I say, I feel like they're doing a good job of really trying to accommodate this for us, and I guess if that's what happens, I'm going to have to learn to live with it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your comments.
Mayor, can I?
Yes, Perry?
I know it's on you, but Sharon, on behalf of the council, if I understand correctly, you recently lost your husband. I just want to pass on our condolences to you as you're going through this tough time. No. I want to pass along our condolences to you.
Thank you. All right. Okay, go ahead, applicant, come on up.
Okay. So my name is Blake Bash, and I represent Elite Craft Homes in this. So after the Planning Commission's recommendation for denial, the biggest sentiment that I kind of got from it was they wanted to keep some mixed use availability there, which is why we came with this new proposal to hopefully compromise in the middle and still be able to get some multifamily housing, which I know the city is in need of as far as what the state is requiring. I mean, every city is in need of, right, for what the state's requiring, but also keep some commercial aspect to the property. So that is what we came back with for hopefully to present to you guys some other option with maybe a RM zone change, but maybe a mixed use overlay that will hopefully give the city still that commercial aspect on the front side on the street, but then keep some multifamily in the back. And that would be the ultimate goal, is really to blend what the city is wanting and what hopefully we can make work with the multifamily. I don't have, other than that, I just know that, I know that the city is in desperate need, based off of what we were talking about at the Planning Commission. They were quite a ways under what the state is kind of wanting them to be at for multifamily housing, and this puts them, I mean, I know it doesn't make much of a dent, but it's bringing it a little farther to what the state is requiring, but also compromising with you guys, with what the city wants. So, and I know we're willing to work with the citizens and the neighbors around to make it work for them, but also make it work for us. But we are willing to work with them on privacy and whatever aspect we can to help out with it, but also make it financially, work for us. So.
Okay, thank you. Council, do you have any questions for the applicant? No? Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And just a question for Nick.
May I go, because
Okay.
with the 8, I think there were 16 parking spots. If you did this, if we did an overlay with mixed use overlay, how many parking spots were there?
So we ended up changing the townhome units to a different townhome design that would allow, it was 2-car garages, so it would allow for the required parking for the townhomes just in the 2-car garages right there, and then we had 6 parking spots for the commercial aspect, which would be well over what the state or the city would require for that mixed-use overlay.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Nick, I was just going to ask, so this is not an application for an overlay, right? So that could just be a condition applied with a motion, or would he need to come back?
It'd probably have to
It'd
go
have to
back
come
to
back.
planning commission.
Right, that's
for
what I
them to
thought.
make a recommendation on
Okay.
the mixed use.
Okay.
That's what I was-
So it would start the process over. Okay, just for clarification.
And one quick question, would there be a possibility of, like a development agreement? If we did, if you guys were to pass the RM zone change with a development agreement, would there be a way to not go back to planning commission and keep that, write something up in the development agreement?
Not really. The planning commission is the recommending body, and the mixed overlay zone is a zone change.
Right.
So it's got to go back through planning commission for their recommendation, and there's also a notice issue, I think, that we also run into.
So
Okay.
can I?
Yes,
So then
Councilmember
is
Oaks.
yeah, I apologize.
And the mixed-use overlay does require a development agreement. So that would come regardless with any mixed-use project.
So, but my question is that if we denied the rezone, would it then require a year to go back to reapply if you're doing a different?
So I don't think it necessarily does. I think it's different. But if the council, I think the council could obviously approve it tonight, deny it tonight, just outright deny it. But I think the council could also say, we'd like to hear the planning commission's recommendation on this overlay and just remand it back to the planning commission if that's something that the council wants to entertain.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you. All right, council, any other questions? Councilmember Hunt? Oh, no? Okay.
No, I think I'm good. I think I covered it.
I have several
Nate?
questions,
Sure.
actually. Okay, so my question about, could we go back to the map where it shows the property and the kind of the homes next to it? Okay. And because there was mention of privacy, and so if it remains general commercial, the height restriction is 35 feet, but then if it's changed, it brings it down to 30 feet. And so that would, I mean, technically, if it stayed the same, then the family could sell it to a developer that would go up to 35 feet. And I wonder if that would be even more invasive with the homes next to it.
But there is a difference where commercial is required to have a minimum of a 20-foot setback from residential,
20 foot, okay.
where residential can have up to an 8-foot side yard to
Okay.
residential.
And I didn't consider that. Thanks for pointing that out. Okay, that kind of answers that. And then, so does GC, the current zoning, does it allow for mixed use, or what would need to be done to create mixed use?
Yes, the general commercial also has the ability to do a mixed-use overlay.
Okay.
The difficulty with that is, I suppose, really there's different requirements for how much square footage can be commercial versus residential. And with an RM zone, that square footage capacity for the residential is 70% and 30% commercial. When it goes to the general commercial overlay zone, it's a 50-50 split. And that's just a lot more difficult to, I think for those trying to develop the property, it's a lot more difficult to have that pencil out, especially on a small parcel like this, where it's, it's really not an ideal parcel for a large commercial development.
So if I understand correctly, by approving the zone change, it moves it from that 50-50 requirement to 70-30.
No, so the application before you is just for a zone change to RM.
But the RM, if we do agree to that zone change, within that framework, they can do 70-30. But if it
Yes, with the
stays,
mixed-use overlay.
okay, but if it stays as the current, then whoever develops that, it would have to be a 50/50 if it's a mixed use.
Correct.
Which you're saying would be challenging. I mean, it looks like it would be.
Yeah, I think this would be a challenging site to do a project like that on. It's not a very big parcel. If it was not so deep and narrow, it would, it would be a little bit more conducive to a development like that. But as it sits, I think it's a tough parcel to try and get a really good, viable commercial building on.
Okay. And just two more quick questions, sorry. What type of commercial is desired from the community? I know you said that the community said they'd prefer to have a commercial entity or whatever there. Is there any specific desire of what that looks like, of what people would like? Have they mentioned that?
You mean like from the community survey?
Yeah.
I agree with you.
I'd have to go back and look, I'm not sure.
Okay.
But, I mean, generally, I think I know I've heard a lot of people talk about a desire to have more restaurants,
Okay.
probably more retail, but I think the most likely candidate for commercial development there would be, probably some office space, some type of a lighter use. Going back to the question about the parking, so the city does have parking standards, or I think it's 1732 where we define those. And part of what we'd have to look at as a mixed-use project were to come forward is that whatever use would go into that building would have to have adequate parking, right? So you have different types of intensity of uses, and based on that, you have, like retail's going to require more parking than an office use would, or a restaurant is going to be a higher intensity use, need more parking than some office would. And so you're also constrained on developing the parcel based on how much parking you can put into the site.
Okay. Could you go back to the map where it showed the mixed use and how many parking stalls it had?
So this is our future land use map. Oh, you wanted to see their
Yeah, the
site
actual
plan?
concept. Yeah, so I just want to make sure I look at this clearly. So the homes to the right, those are, with this design, it's one-car garage homes?
That's a two.
Oh, these are two-car garage, okay. And so if I'm a family, I live in that home, and I have friends over, or family over, where do they park? Either or.
Sure, come on up.
I'm just kind of concerned
And
about
I
that.
do just want to give a big caveat here that this has not been through any type of a site
this is
review process with staff. So we haven't looked at the square footage. We have not, like, this was just a very.
Oh, I
concept.
understand that. I'm just thinking ahead, like, yeah, mixed use. I love the concept of mixed use, but the reality is, if you're a family that buys that home, where are visitors going to park? And so that's something I just want to kind of think ahead.
You bet. So one idea we had thought of was create an HOA for the whole parcel, the whole property together. And the business use would have the parking where the business is. This is just an idea, but they have the parking for a certain time, maybe 8 to 6 o'clock. And then the people in the townhomes behind, they would be able to use that additional parking for friends or family or visitors after those hours, but then before business starts, they have to be out of those spots.
Okay.
With an HOA managing it and citing people if they're not obeying it. And,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just a concern I have, for it is a tight space.
It is, yeah. It was very challenging to come up with anything that would fit that mixed-use space. But I think we did a bit good a job as we could with that. So, any other questions about that?
No? Okay.
The mixed-use zone
Councilmember
overlay also
Blackman?
does allow for shared parking agreements to, in theory, right, you're friends visiting, your family visiting is going to be more after work hours and on the weekends when the office would likely not be open. And so, that's something that we would work out in a development agreement. But the mixed use overlay does account for having shared parking as an opportunity.
Did you have something?
The only thing I would love to be able, I know that you don't like me to talk until somebody's made a motion, but I would love to have an opportunity to give some history on this property.
Too
If
bad.
you could show the overhead.
Figure out a way to say a question.
Yeah, well, okay. I'd like to wonder how this happened. So could you show the overhead? The aerial, yeah, the aerial photography of that. Right. Okay. So some history on this is, years and years ago, and I don't know how, 20, 30 years ago, this was all zoned residential. And the citizens of Kaysville City said, we need commercial property on our major thoroughfares, Main Street, 200 North. And they said, and they went to the property owners, some in agreement, some not in agreement, and they zoned this area general commercial because it was on Main Street. And when you change a zoning like that, it takes a plan. And plans take time to work. And so as you've gone through and you've seen that some of these houses have gone away because they're older homes and they've turned into commercial property. Now, one of the most recent developments over there was Hyde Park. Well, Hyde Park had general commercial property where they're at and where their houses are at. But one of the agreements that was made, we did not have a mixed-use zone at that time, was that they would rezone the back portion to an RM zone, or R1, R2, I think it was R2 or something like that. They allowed them to put some townhouses in there. There's some 4-unit townhouses in that. And they kept the front 200 feet general commercial. They felt like there was such a need for that, and there was no area in the city that you could just grow commercial ground, and the city had a plan to do that, also understanding there's some residential. So in a way, they did do mixed use, and if you go back and look at the minutes of those meetings of when they did that, when they built Hyde Park, there was a lot of discussion because obviously the developers wanted to put houses all the way to Main Street, but the council said, no, there's been a plan. The people have said that. And I think the 2022 statistically valid survey showed that's what the people still want. They still want that commercial on Main Street to allow some of these smaller offices, businesses that are growing to have that visibility, to have the ability to come to Kaysville and build that. Because once it goes, you can't replace that Main Street frontage for commercial property. You can put residential pretty much anywhere in Kaysville. I don't think anybody's against the mixed use, but I think a lot of people are against giving up the commercial on these major thoroughfares. I think it works. I think the office building by Hyde Park holding out, or the developer and the council holding out and getting that 200 feet deep, and we see a brand new office building, which is going to create jobs in the city. It's probably going to help people not have to drive to Salt Lake to commute for the long commutes. There's a lot of benefit for these commercial buildings on these streets. I don't know what the comparison is when you start talking about taxable property income. Commercial pays a higher tax. You might be able to get 3 or 4 houses in there. I don't know how you compare the Amazon purchases of 3 families compared to commercial buildings and the people that are there. But I think you've got to look and say, okay, the city had a plan and stick with that plan. And they say, well, times change. Well, I think the city says, okay, we've changed with the times by allowing some residential further behind, but keeping that commercial on Main Street. So it's just a little history I'd like to give on the property because it's gone from residential to commercial, and it's kind of in a way did some mixed use by saying you've got to at least keep that 200 feet of commercial frontage on Main Street.
You could just say, like, what do you think, Belinda? And then it's a question.
Yeah, isn't that?
Thank
But
you.
and I've always said, one of the things I wish people would do is go back and find out the times when these things happen, because it hasn't been that long. There's probably been 2 or 3 councils since that that have supported that concept. And I think when we did that 2022 statistically valid survey, it backed it. It says the people of Kaysville said, yes, we still want you to save and maintain and keep that commercial on Main Street and 200 North and Flint Street and those major thoroughfares. You know, they're saying, we know there's a need for housing, but there's places it can go. But there's not a lot of places the commercial can go. And I think this survey was very valid.
Thank you, Councilmember Blackham. Councilmember Oaks.
No, I need to say kudos to the Planning Commission on this one. I listened to their discussion as they went through this a few weeks ago, and as they talked through it, you know, and they understand that the property, you go back that long, property is not great for mixed use, but the fact that we just adopted a new general plan that goes along what you're saying, Mike, that, you know, Councilmember Blackham, to keep that commercial or mixed use, you know, there, I think it's valid, and we want to keep that. I have to say that, and I realize that your concept hasn't really gone through much, but you came with something, is how can we adjust to be able to do both and meet the intent of what the Planning Commission said with their denial. And
Councilmember
I applaud
Oaks,
that.
you gotta ask questions. This is the question.
Oh, okay. Let's see.
We're a little bit out of order today.
Melinda,
but-
oh, you know, but no, I thought this was comments. So, but I appreciate the work that's gone in from also.
Thank you, Councilmember Oaks.
How do I phrase that to a question?
It's okay, it's okay. I will comment, I had a conversation a little bit earlier. Oh,
Do
okay.
you have a question? Or
I'm the chair.
you can say whatever you want.
John, do you have a question first? Okay. You're entitled.
I do have a question.
Okay.
You said, and then I'll make a motion, then we can do all the comments.
Before your motion, though, I have a comment.
Okay, I believe one of the comments that was made by the applicant was that the city's in desperate need of multifamily housing and that we are not meeting the state's requirements. Where does that, is there backing for that? Is there data for that,
Yes.
Melinda? I mean, are we, because at last I heard, we didn't get like a report from the state saying
We're waiting for
Kaysville's-
that report, you're right.
Kaysville, yeah, so, I mean, I think that's hyperbole, as far as I know.
I would tend to agree. I mean, based on the 2019 plan and the moderate income housing element that we had in there, I would think that's accurate. But since then, right, state laws changed and we've adopted a new general plan. We're working towards getting that compliant with the state code on moderate income housing, which it's not right now. So look for a general plan amendment to be coming to you in the next couple of months. But I think it would be difficult to answer that question because as of now, we don't have a general plan that meets state code. And once we choose and select those elements from state code that we're allowed to implement into our general plan, then we will have this year as a baseline reporting year, and from here forward, they will judge our performance based off of that. So I think what's gone on in the past is really, at this point, not relevant. But I can't say if we're in compliance because we don't have
the data
a
yet.
general plan that's in compliance yet. But I don't think that this is a situation where the state is mandating you have to have a certain percentage or you have to have a certain number of housing units that meet moderate income housing or affordable housing. They are, in some respects, trying to let the community choose what that means for itself within the parameters that they've set within state code.
So, yeah, I mean, so to sum up what you said, would I be correct in saying that we are, as far as we know, we are meeting the state's needs? There is nothing from the state saying you guys aren't meeting our requirements.
No, No, because our general plan is not in compliant with state code. So I would say, no, we're not meeting the state needs. But the state's not coming across in that code and dictating a certain percentage or a certain amount.
Okay.
Mayor, I
Yes.
think if Councilmember Adams is asking if the actions we've been taking have been out of compliance, I don't think that's true. But I think technically Melinda's right. We are out of compliance with this very specific deadline that was given us October 1st. We just barely adopted the general plan. But I think what the applicant mentioned and what Melinda's clarifying are two different issues.
I agree.
And I don't think that there's not a clear, like, you haven't allowed a certain number of units per this year, and so you're out of compliance. I don't think there's anything like that we've received from the state. Generally, are we the best in approving housing density? No, we're not. But that doesn't mean we've been specifically targeted and said, you did this wrong per this state code.
And I think that's important to clarify. Thank you. And there is a difference between multifamily housing and moderate income housing, correct?
Very much.
Well, yeah, I mean, moderate income housing has a specific definition in state code, and it has to do with the area median income and what percentage of the housing costs are to the area median income.
Awesome. Thank you. Sorry.
All right. This has been a really unique situation, as Linda explained. We were operating under two different general plans, and I listened to Planning Commission meeting as well. And so, because it's been a little bit out of the ordinary and a little bit unique, we've allowed things to happen a little bit out of order today. But I've also asked or spoken to Commissioner Sunloff, or not Sunloff, Summercorn. Sorry about that, Will. And he is here, and I would invite you to come up to provide a little bit of additional information, and then we'll be ready for a motion, and we can continue comments if that's what you guys would like to do.
Yeah, I think Will Summercorn.
Yeah, sorry about that, Will.
Member of the Planning Commission. I think this was a little bit of an unusual situation, just because we were in between, we had the old master plan still, or the general plan. We're getting ready to adopt the new one, and we have some situations with some of our zones. And so, as we discussed it, I think at the Planning Commission, I think when we looked at it, there was a lot of sentiment for what Councilmember Blackham was talking about, saying, this area is commercial, and there's been a strong desire to keep things commercial. And so that ought to really be taken into consideration. By the same token, there's been a lot of discussion about the need for additional housing and varied housing. And so what do we do? And of course, as we looked at the new general plan that was coming up, it was saying that this area ought to be mixed use. And so that was kind of the feeling, I think, of many of us on the Planning Commission was this could probably work really well if it was mixed use, because then you could get both. You could get some commercial and some housing on that site. And so my feeling, and I think the feeling of some of the other planning commissioners, though I don't pretend to speak for them, I'm just speaking for myself, really felt like that what I'd really like to see on this is to have the mixed-use overlay placed here, which would then give the option to do both. And to keep the commercial on some part of that, and then also allow some residential. But that was not the request that was before us. We were being asked to decide or make a recommendation on the rezone to the RM zone. And so that was what we took a vote on. And given that, I made the motion to deny that, but with the idea or the feeling, the hope that come back and ask for the mixed use, because that's what we really, I think, would like to see on that property. That subsequently hasn't happened, but I think if we were to reconsider it at the Planning Commission level, I think we would really, I think we'd look favorably on trying to put that mixed-use overlay zone into place over this. Now, whether that underlying zone ought to be the general commercial or the RM zone depends on the circumstances. I have learned some things since we took that motion about what's happening with commercial, particularly small-scale commercial and mixed uses like this. And that may argue more for, well, I ought to just save that discussion for if we get to it with the Planning Commission. But that's just my feeling. I wanted you all to know that if I could have a do-over with the Planning Commission, I think we'd much more strongly emphasize the desire to get the mixed-use overlay here rather than change the zone or to leave the zone as it is. Let's try to get the best of both worlds, and that's what our general plan calls for.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Will.
All right. Are we ready for a motion?
I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay, Councilmember Blackham.
I will make a motion that we deny the rezone of .65 acres, the property at 500 North Main, from general commercial to the RM multifamily zoning district.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any comments?
Yes.
Yes. Councilmember Adams.
Yay! I waited so long to make comments. I think that first of all, Will, I got that feeling from you during the commission. So I think you do such a fantastic job of explaining yourself, and so bravo, because I got that feeling from you. In fact, I kind of expected this to come back to the Planning Commission, because I thought, man, they would have a slam dunk if you come back with mixed use. And I get it, like you want to have residential there, and it's probably provides with the highest revenue stream. But like from what Councilmember Blackham was saying, we had a meeting earlier tonight about using RDA funds to help provide more businesses on Main Street. And like, to me, when I look at the map, I see all of those homes, which are probably have some, older folks living in it or older homes. That's the opportunity of like a larger plan, a larger scale plan, because you talk about how this is just this narrow strip, and it'd be really hard to do mixed use in that narrow strip. I tend to agree. Like your office plan, while it looks great initially, like Councilmember Nate said, he's his comment about the parking, I don't, that'd just be a disaster fire, trying to get people to leave by, do the walk of shame by 8 o'clock so a business can open and things like that. Like, I think that the idea here is really that we try and get all of those homes to sell, and you turn it into a mixed use in that entire area. And I think that's what these people 20 years ago had in mind when they said, let's have some businesses lining Main Street. And I know that's not super great for what your plan is, but I feel like that's what they intended, and I think that that's what would be best for the community, and that's why I voted to deny it, or second it.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Councilmember Hunt?
Mayor, thank you. I guess, gosh, where to start? I guess the first thing I would say is that I want to thank Blake Bastion and Elite Craft Homes for their good effort on this. I mean, it's not very often that you'll find a developer who's willing, it happens, but who's willing to work with the neighbors and come up with compromises. He got from the feeling from the Planning Commission that they wanted mixed use, and that they brought that here. We've decided that maybe it is not 100%, well, we don't know whether or not it's completely feasible, but the fact that they were willing to put that in, I think, speaks a lot to the kind of business that they have. I know that they have, don't you have a property across the street? And I think that's going to be a good concept there. It works there. And just the fact that Mrs. Hadley also was willing to attest to the fact that they're working, I think, is something to take into consideration. But are we allowed to ask questions during the statement time?
Go for it, Abby.
Since I gave comments
we've been a little
earlier.
bit out of order today.
Sorry, Mayor.
Yes, it's okay.
Melinda, if this is denied, then if they wanted to do mixed use, they would have to do it within the stipulations of the mixed use with commercial, or wait a year, right, to reapply?
So we did discuss that, and we feel like an application from RM and the difference between that and an RM to a mixed-use overlay is substantially different enough that we would forego the 1 year.
Okay.
Yeah, so if they came back and reapplied for RM with a mixed-use overlay, we would process that application and not make them wait a year.
Okay. Thanks, I appreciate that. I think that kind of concludes my comments.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Councilmember Oaks?
Oh, I already did.
Oh, you already did. Oh, that's right, that's right. Councilmember Blackham, do you have a question? No, I'm just kidding. No, okay. All right, we're ready for a vote. Let's start with Councilmember Jackson.
Can Councilmember Blackham restate his motion?
My motion?
Yeah.
I made a motion to deny the rezone.
Okay. Yay.
Aye.
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 Okay, thank you. Motion passes. Thank you for being here, applicant. Thank you, residents. Okay, all right, we'll move on to action item 5B, a resolution authorizing an interlocal cooperation agreement with Farmington City to construct the Connector Road project. Turn this over to Shane.
Thanks, Mayor. We talked about this in the work portion of the meeting last time, and I think Mr. Mills has reviewed this agreement, and we think this is ready for adoption. We did open bids today, and they did come in very favorably. I'm excited to talk more about that probably at the next meeting with all of you. So very excited about that part of the project, but I think this agreement's ready to go.
Okay, council, we don't have anyone signed up to speak, so do you have any questions? No? Are we ready for a motion? All right,
Yeah.
Councilmember Oaks?
Yeah, I'll make a motion. A motion that we approve a resolution authorizing an interlocal cooperation agreement with Farmington City to construct the Connector Road project.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any comments? No? Okay, let's start with Councilmember Hunt.
Aye.
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 Okay, motion passes. Thank you. 5C, an ordinance amending Kaysville City Code, Section 8.5, flood damage prevention. Shane?
Thanks, Mayor. I think this one is in a similar position. We mentioned this, also we had Mr. Dexter here last meeting, and I think these changes to our FEMA floodplain maps are ready to go as well.
Okay. Council, questions? Nope. Ready for a motion? We don't have anyone signed up to speak to this item either. Councilmember Adams.
I'll make a motion that we approve the ordinance amending Kaysville Code 8-5.
I'll second.
Great. A motion in multiple seconds. Councilmember Adams.
Aye.
Councilmember Blackham.
Aye. Aye.
She's going in
We're going that way.
Oh,
Sorry,
wow.
I'm shaking it up today. We're just,
Aye.
thank you.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
She's helping stave off Alzheimer's.
I'm just
I just got it.
keeping you guys awake, that's all. Okay. All right, action 5D, authorization to purchase dispatch outage communication management system software. Turn the time over to our power department manager, Brian.
Thank you for having me here tonight. Apologize I wasn't here in the last meeting to answer or to comment on the direction of the OMS IVR system for the power department. I guess what I'm looking for, I guess I'll give a quick breakdown of what it does and then what I'm hoping to move forward with. So about a month ago, it came to council for just the IVR system. And that was on me because one of those situations where you don't know what you don't know. And the further I dug into what it would entail, what options we have, the technology available to us, working with Ryan, finding out where we are with our own GIS, our software, the technologies that the city's already been implementing and has implemented from 8 to 10 years ago. We are, props to our IT department. They are so awesome. We are prepped and ready to go with technology I didn't understand and know that we were prepped and ready to go with. And we have opportunities and options ahead of us to be able to use some really sweet and advanced technology. And that being the OMS and IVR, which will also later down the road allow us to implement load study and other data analysis into our system as well, which will be very beneficial for the power department. Right now, basically, as it works, the IVR will allow people to call in. It'll be an automated message. They can both call by voice or text message. They'll go through an automated selection that will then notify our staff that there is an outage. Hopefully with the outage management system, the theory is that our staff will already be aware that there is an outage and been notified. And at that point, we then have the ability to send a text message to everyone involved in the, or a response to everybody involved in that outage or in that incident, that crews are on their way and that we are aware of the fact that they are out of power. Another thing that we'll do is if people aren't home, they'll receive a notification that, hey, you are out of power. And people will know, even if they're on vacation or somewhere else, maybe make arrangements if they need to, if it looks like it's going to be a big serious thing. It allows us to have correspondence and updates back and forth with our residents. It also allows us to, within minutes, to notify of pre-planned outages. If we are, right now, we're working on, we're beginning stages right now, the rebuild of King Clarion. We would then have the capability in this example, if we were going to take a planned outage in King Clarion to transfer lines, it would be as simple as getting on the computer, selecting the feeder that feeds where we would be working. All the accounts would pull up, we would type our message, and it would send it, hey, just so you're aware, we're working in your area. You're going to be out of power, a scheduled outage to transfer lines this date at this time. Plan on this amount of time being out of power. Any questions, please feel free to contact the power department. So it really opens up options for us. And then the OMS side of it has it's very advanced in its analytical options, what it can do. And so basically, before we even arrive on a scene, we're going to know how big the fault was. We're going to know potentially a distance from the open point, the blown fuse, the substation, wherever we became open, causing power to go out. It will give us approximate distance to where the fault took place, which would potentially and should reduce significantly the amount of time that our guys are out running test equipment, looking for, searching for, trying to find what the problem is before we can even begin fixing the problem. That's generally when we have an outage, figuring out what the problem is takes more time than fixing the problem. Of course, unless a car or something plowed through a pole or a electrical underground box or something of that nature. It's pretty obvious what it is at that point, and it's an extensive job to fix it. But it also provides options or abilities for us to be able to see the big picture. East winds. First east wind came, it was a fluke, never happened again. Well, guess what? Happened again. And then we had little miniature microbursts. And then we had a rainstorm that was really dirty. We had pole fires all over the city about 6 years ago. We had like 8 pole fires all at once. And we were out trying to just put fires off the poles and then start addressing outages, temporarily holding things up. This would give us a grand picture rather than our guys going out trying to figure out what do we have, who's out, what phases. It'll all be laid out right there in front of us. We'll be able to see everything. It gives us inventories, what fuse sizes, what equipment, what size transformer, everything. We'd be able to pull up right there and see exactly what we need on site and be able to get the big picture of exactly what's going on. As far as a on-call basis, trying to troubleshoot, this will be technology that will be absolutely amazing for our guys. It's something that someone like me, when I started my career, I dreamt of someday being able to be a part of. I didn't realize it would be this early on in my career, that the opportunity to be a part of this type of technology would be possible, but here it is. Originally, like I said, you don't know. So originally when I submitted the consent item, with looking into this, not knowing all that it could entail and all that we were already prepared for, being able to implement in the city of Kaysville. So now I've blanketed. Basically what I've done is I've reached out to other organizations in other cities. We've reached out to two different companies that sell and work with this type of software. And basically what I've done is I've compiled what I feel is the ceiling. We will not go over, or should not have to go over, the ceiling amount of what it would require to implement the very top of the line, the very best that there is. Now, I'm not saying that's what I'm going for, because what Lehigh has, or what Dixie Power has, or what Provo has, doesn't mean that's what's going to fit our system. We're Kaysville, and I want to get what Kaysville will work for us. And so my hope is that I won't even get close to that ceiling. But as I investigate and as I looked into what this OMS system has, we just barely heard from Empower again. We've heard from two others. I'm hoping to have in the future hear from two more organizations. This is a super long, drawn-out process. This could be, before we're able to make the appropriate right decision, it could be months. It could be, it could roll a lot faster than we think, but I don't necessarily want to be pushing down this road 4 months, deciding, working on this, trying to figure out everything we have, when I come here and find out it's not even a possibility and it's just shut down. So I want to know if this type of technology is a possibility. I did pitch it to the Power Commission. Power Commission agreed, yeah, this is pretty awesome. This is something that would be good for us, and they found it entertaining, and that's where they kind of left it. But like I said, Ryan, Jordan, Duncan, our IT guys, they've been phenomenal, absolutely amazing. They've been really good at working with seeing what softwares we already have, what will work with our system, what won't work with our system, what's compatible, and we're a lot farther ahead of the ball game than a lot of municipalities that are out there, and it really is due to credit of theirs. With that being said, I don't want to waste any more of their time or any more of my time in pursuing potentially 2, 3, 4 more months of, or however long it takes, this type of technology, if I don't feel that it's an option. And so what I'm hoping and looking for from you is an approval of that ceiling amount that will allow me to pursue all options, and then determine with our guys which one we feel fits best for the city of Kaysville, which one will work for our dynamics and our population and our substations and our demand.
Thanks, Brian. Does anyone have any questions?
I have a lot of questions.
Councilmember Blackham.
Yeah.
But I'll let, so my questions are, I mean, there's a lot of things that everybody wants. I have a huge wish list at home, but I can't do it because I can't afford it, okay? There are things that make everybody's life easier, but where I'm kind of struggling with the fact that this wasn't even in the budget, and it was 165,000 with, or 145,000 with a first time, but there was a lot of open-endedness in that contract that said a lot of things that didn't cover, that does not cover this, does not cover this. And then it was a $65,000 a year service that was replacing a $6,000 a year service that we kind of had. And so I'm looking at the big picture, because when we were in the budget process, this wasn't even brought up. But what was brought up was the need that we needed to have. We were in dire needs of a shop, or of you guys expanding, building your own building. And I realized that money only goes so far, or you raise rates or you raise taxes. And I thought, 165,000, you know, that would be nice to see that going into a capital improvement budget, unless this is an absolute necessary thing. Now, that's what I have to leave it up to you. You have to come to me and say, I can't live without this. You know, and if it's just something that's going to send somebody a text or whatever that says your power's out, well, if the power went out right here, I don't need a text to tell me the power's out. Okay, I know it's out. Duration, sure, that would help. So I guess what I'm saying is we take up here, our number one job that we do is budget and money of the sacred funds of taxpayers and ratepayers. And so we say, all right, if you say this is what you need, this is what you asked for, then maybe that means no to something else later. Or does that put the shop another year behind? Or something like that. That's where I get confused with priorities. Because, you know, when budgets, it seemed like the shop was, and getting, you know, just you guys being able to even go out on your own and build your own building would help out Public Works, Parks, everybody else. And that's the question I have for you, Brian. I mean, is it, if it will literally say that if the guy on call and the power goes out, it'll tell him it's the transformer on 3rd East and 2nd South, and it's on pole number 45, and it's a 10 kVA transformer, and you just go get one in your truck and go fix it, you know. I get that's a real benefit. Usually when an outage comes out, you can narrow it down to what transformers. And a lot of times, and I take back the survey that we have and the presentation that we get every year from your outages, and you really have a really good record of actually staying on. I think we're like at 98% on all the time. And a lot of times our outages are our provider that's will and power to us. And so I just have to ask, is this the cost that is this something you really got to have? Because I see it pushing other things down the road.
Yeah. In the grand scheme of things, I'm going to have to respectfully disagree with it pushing things too far down the road.
Okay.
Because it's a, you know, when you're talking a $36 million building and a, you know, a $50,000 annual fee, which I'm hoping won't even be that. I'm hoping we'll be half that or even a third of that. But it really is, we can't, when it comes down to this, we can't compare apples to apples. Can we get by without it? Sure, we've been getting by without it for 40 years, 50 years, 60 years, 70 years, however long. But if we were to operate exactly like we did 70 years ago, you know, there are advancements that you take in any industry and in any department and in anything you do. And this is one of those advancements. As far as the quality of outages or the number of outages, you are very correct. That is something that we take a ton of pride in, that we are a very reliable city, and we don't see the number of outages that we have. We are rebuilding a lot of our city. We are putting a lot of money into our infrastructure rebuild, just as Mike mentioned. And so there is hopefully going to be less, but this will also open up more doors for us to have at our fingertips more information than just what's here. Load studies. I do load studies all the time. All the time. Bruce does load studies all the time. Brett does load studies all the time.
Can you explain just a little bit of the opportunity aspect? Because I'm not fully aware of the load study.
Yeah, so basically when I get a call on a transformer or an upgrade or an extension cost, I have to do a load study to see what the impact on our grid or our system that will have. So anytime there is an increase or a change on the electrical department side, whether it's one service or a whole entire subdivision, I need to determine the impact that that's going to have on our system. And so I run a load study. I find out how much do we have. So if one single resident wants to upgrade their service, I have to do a load study on everything, you know, that is tied to that transformer to find out if that transformer has the capacity to take on an upgrade. And if it doesn't, then I need to know what needs to take place and what we need to do so that it can. And so there's just a lot of technology and a lot of things that are futuristic, if you will, that will put us in a good place. This is something that you look at across the board, and there are cities implementing this all over the place. Bountiful's restructuring their OMS system. They've had an OMS system for years. They've gone away with their old system because of new technology, new things that they present, the options of software, and they are now restructuring and looking into a new one. You look at surrounding places, you know, Heber, Hiram, Logan.
What is that acronym, OMS?
OMS, outage management system,
Okay.
sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, so, and the IVR is kind of where we started with this, because our dispatch really is not efficient. The way our dispatch is working right now just isn't working. And so when we first
What's
initially started
IVR?
working, yeah.
What's IVR?
Interactive voice response. Thank you. It's basically a virtual dispatch that will work through a program and a software rather than be paying individuals, less human error. And that's another thing that this software will provide, is less human error with our load studies, with our outage management, with equipment and things of that nature. So when it comes down to is it dire straits and dire need? No. I would be frank and honest with you, we'll survive without this. But will it be very beneficial, I feel like, to the city, and will it be something that will have a positive impact on our ability to communicate with the residents, to be more proficient, and open up more opportunities for us to be better at what we do? Yes, I do. I do very much so think that it will be. And I have thought about it. I've talked to other administrative individuals, employees of the city, and my guys, and I feel like we're all on the same board, all in the same boat, that this is something that will be very beneficial for our department. And it's not necessarily thinking about the now, but more about the down the road. And you can look at it two different ways. Okay, then what else are we pushing farther down the road? Or what then will we be more prepared for down the road? And that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to look and be the most prepared power department we can for whatever other technology or whatever options may become our way. And right now we are pretty archaic. I have a chart that I was given to from Bruce that is from 1988. It was a chart from 1988, and we seriously go down as we say, oh, we don't even have that voltage anymore. Let's see here. You know, how do they calculate that? And that's how we're doing it right now. I mean, there's not a computer program, and I've actually gone and figured out how they do those. I didn't know before I got this job. I had no idea. I went and did the research and found out how they do those calculations. How do they come up with those numbers? How do they calculate it? What do I need to go from kilowatts to amps, from amps to kVA, which is all electrical terminology I'm throwing at you. But that's how I do it now. I do the actual equations. I figure it out. I don't go off some chart from years ago. That doesn't make sense to me. I don't know the why, and I need to know the why. But this type of software and technology will improve those types of things to allow us to be in a place that we won't be working off of this old system and we'll be more efficient. And I will admit, it's really cool.
Yeah,
You know,
it's just going to be
it
really
is.
efficient.
Well, I think as a council, we don't understand what you do, really.
Yeah.
And that's what I like to see. I like to see you come in here and say, yeah, I'm passionate about this. And I know the money's there.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Oates, did you have a question?
Yeah,
Okay.
I did. Because, as Shane explained, a couple weeks ago when this was a work item, that if this had been done within the budget cycle, we would have just approved the budget.
Right.
And, unfortunately for you, it's, you're bringing an out-of-cycle request. And I go, and what Councilmember Blackham said, our primary responsibility ends up being financial for the city. And so my two questions is, if I go to my wife and say, hey, I want to buy this, she's going to say, what are you going to do without? And if it's vice versa, because you have a budget and say we're going to live within this budget, we have, even though we might have money in our savings, it's really got to be pretty cool to go outside of that. So my question would be, is there something that you would be willing to go without this year to be able to do this within your current budget? And then the next question, you can think about that, the next question is, if you waited till next year and in the budget cycle, then we're just approving the budget. And is that doable?
If this doesn't move forward, yes, I will put it in the next year. And if it doesn't go then I'll put it in the next year and the next year and the next year. And I plan on being here for 26 more years. So just so
well,
you know how
and we hope you are. and we hope you are. And that's, I guess, since we missed this, in a sense, we didn't do this earlier, can it wait until we start talking budgets for next year? And it's just going to be 6 months when we start that. Okay.
Yeah, it will be something. I mean, obviously, it's something that we would like to move forward with sooner. As far as the things I can't go without, everything I put in the budget this year are things that they are absolute musts. They're things that we should have been implementing and doing 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago. Transformers in the substations. Working on our burn-ups, our direct bury underground that's 60 years old and the wire's only rated for 45 years. Those types of things, those are have to. So no, I can't give up anything that's in the budget right now because they are things that have to be addressed.
And that was sort of my understanding, if
Yes.
I go back to that. Okay.
Yeah, most definitely. So there isn't anything that I would be willing to give up. And we would go about functioning as we have been, a little less happy and depressed, but we would.
Brian,
we would.
I'm sorry, can I just
Yeah.
jump in real fast? What we're doing now is when an outage happens, we communicate on Facebook. And that has proven to be modestly effective for those that are on Facebook. I think people go there and they look for that when there's an outage because people do want to know when that is going to be returned. That would be number one. We can continue to do it that way, but what I have heard from council members and others in the community is that's not good enough. And when I've interacted with Rocky Mountain Power and seen how they do things, I think they have some efficiencies there that we could enjoy. And the second thing would be, I think that as someone calls in with an outage, that person would take the call in the after-hours booth, and they would then tell Brian and his people where that outage is, and they would continue to go out and do that. So can we get by? We absolutely can. We can do the status quo, and that would work, and we can, like you said, address it next year if that's what the council wants. But I think every day we're doing it this way is the day we're missing some opportunities to communicate better, to be more efficient, and to just maximize our potential as a power city.
If I may also add to that, I took call for 5 years here, 2 years or 1 year as an apprentice and 4 years as a journeyman lineman here in the power department. And I will attest to, and I can speak for everyone in the department. It is extremely frustrating to show up not knowing anything. All I know is that person called us and said they're out of power. And then I show up and I literally have no knowledge of how many houses are out, who, you know, the cause or anything of that nature. And countless times I go knock on their door to try and figure out, you know, did you hear any booms? Are you, I'm looking to see if neighbors are out. And residents will come out expecting us to already have known what's going on, and they're wanting answers. And I sit there and feel dumb and look dumb and sound dumb because I don't have any answers. And all I can tell them is, I don't know. Looks like your neighbors are out too. So we're gonna walk around in your backyard for a minute and try and figure out what possibly it is. And that is frustrating. And so I think that some of this is coming from my passion and my desire to see advancement in my career, my line of work, something that I take very serious and that I love. And so this would provide us to give better answers, better response. Before we even show up, we would know how many houses are out and analyze software that would give us a very strong prediction of what fuse blew, why it blew, how many houses are out, and what we need to do before we even arrive on scene. And so it will be very impactful when we have outages. But then it also provides, now if you also want to look on a different spectrum, it provides ability for us to be able to reach out to residents, maybe not even with power. It would be through our IVR system, but maybe in some type of emergency, we need to reach out a text message to our residents for some type of natural disaster or something of that nature. I could easily, within a minute, within 2-3 minutes, kick out a message that would go citywide. Within 3 minutes, natural disaster to all their cell phones.
Yeah, that would be good.
So that's something to consider as well, that it would go, potentially there would present options and opportunities to use this software outside of just the power department.
Thank you, Brian. Are there any other questions?
I do.
Oh, Councilmember Adams and then Councilmember Hunt.
Thank you, by the way. You're awesome. Thank you for all you do. And I was totally tracking you right up until the moment where you said, like, you want a ceiling. Like, you think it might be less, you hope that it might be less, but you want a ceiling because you don't want to, you don't want to pursue this and then find out that we say no, which I totally get. Like, nobody wants to go and do this work. But I guess what I don't understand is this not something that we can get bids on? Like, I mean,
it is, but we have to go through that process. It's not just a blanket bid because each company provides a different type of software, a different setup. Just really quick for an example, Surveillant works through SCADA and SCADA only. So we actually have SCADA in the process of being installed. We're about 8-9 months out from it being the first portion of it being implemented. But they can't function, their IVR and their OMS only works off of the SCADA. MillSoft works off of, now I might confuse the two, but Empower and MillSoft, one of them works off AMI, which would be our metering system, and the other one works off of our billing system. The way that they collect their information to analyze and to process locations, where things are out, the way that their computer systems tie into our system and work and the software, it's all integrated differently. And so it's not something that you can just say, hey, we want to bid on an OMS system. It needs to be an OMS system that will actually be functional for our city.
yeah, but I mean, speak to me like I'm 5 on this situation because I'm losing. Why couldn't they give a bid on, like, I mean, it seems to me like if we say a blanket amount, like if I'm watching a council meeting, which probably I'm not, but like the folks would think, oh, well, there's clearly 145 grand on this, like, we're gonna all bid a little bit higher than maybe we were if we thought there's competition. I mean, do you feel like an approval from us to get bids? I just hate like saying that this is the amount and it's possible that it'll be, does that make sense? Like, it's kind of like saying like, hey, I have $100 in my pocket and I've come here to negotiate.
I will say, so the first time, the second time it was on the agenda, that was based on pricing that was actual pricing for that specific software, right?
Correct, yes.
And so since then, you've been able to go out and find out that there might be some other additional options. So I guess to John's point, it wasn't that we put a number out there and then that was the price. They went and investigated software based upon that Power Commission meeting or that conference that Shane and I were at, and Brian, and then found out this is the price, and so kind of set that as the benchmark, trying to find a cheaper alternative. Is that correct? Because I understand what you're saying.
And like, how much does it cost them or cost us to get bids from, SCADA and so-and-so and so-and-so? Like, because I get what you're saying. You don't want to go do a bunch of work 4 months down the road. Like, is it really going to cost us a lot of manpower to get those bids? And then
we already have bids from these different companies,
Yes.
but they're just not apples to apples. It's just they do different things. So we don't necessarily want to just go with the cheapest because that may not function for us the best way. But do they know that they're being competing with other companies? Absolutely. They all know we're talking to the different 4 or 5, and so they're sharpening their pencils, giving us the best price.
And can't we just pick the one that we want, though, and
Yes,
say
that's
how
what we'd
much?
like to do, but we're just not sure exactly which one that is yet.
Oh.
Yeah, 'cause
And
it's
I
very
think
I mean, it'd be so much easier if you said, like, yeah, we picked this one, and it's 110,
I think that
and it's 50 grand a year or
the only-
40 grand a year.
yeah,
Then it's like, okay, we
could
prove
do
that.
We could do that. The downside to that was we didn't want it. It is hard to. We're asking Ryan and Brian to put in a lot of time. It's not going to cost us anything, but they're having meetings. They're having hour-long Zoom meetings with these folks from around the country. They've done this multiple times. They're talking to other cities. It is a very labor-intensive vetting process. And so as much as we spend already now, we just want to know that when we do come to you and say, okay, it's $140,000 and it's $60,000 a year, you're going to go, great, we already know that that's what it's going to be. Or it's better than that, or it's worse than that. Actually, we want to do it for $250, but it's because it's this, and this. And we're happy to explain that to you again, but Brian doesn't want to waste any more time, and Ryan, he's just a rock star in this, and what he's put together in our city to have us prepared for AMI and the 2-meter systems and the two-way communication and the fiber is just really unparalleled, and we're in a very, very good position.
I think it's awesome. I still have a hard time understanding like the blanket check, but maybe that's just my brain.
I think
Sorry, Mike. I was just going to let Abby have an opportunity really quick.
Councilmember Jackson, I'll let him go first.
Oh, okay.
That's okay.
Yeah, just a quick question. Will this technology, will it allow you to predict equipment you'll need in the future? Is there any way to see equipment that's starting to fail slowly? Because I know with supply chain issues and certain things like the transformers, it took like they were 6 months out, and we can't afford to wait if we have an emergency or something. So I'm just curious if it plays into that at all.
It won't have the ability to give us, a wear and tear on equipment. The only way to get a prediction on wear and tear on equipment is to go look at the equipment or to test the equipment itself. So in that aspect, no, it won't. But it will allow us to see numbers. For example, the AMIs we put out there, right? I'm able to now go in and we're able to find problems that we were having that we didn't know we were having for years and years and years. People that were having flickering lights and just never called us, and we had no idea until we got looking through the data, and we didn't even know this was going to be something that was presented to us, or that would be an option until after they were fully implemented. And so we would get on and we would look and be like, holy crap, they're getting super low voltage. And then we would go out and look and find out that 20 years ago, they ran 6 spans of secondary wire to their house. And so they're having so much voltage drop, they're not getting good voltage, and they've been running off crappy voltage for years. And then we address it and we fix it. And so I do strongly believe that there will be things of that nature that we're not even quite aware of, that we will help us with predictive analysis and predictive concerns that we can go and mitigate and work towards and help in our infrastructure.
Okay. Another quick one that just came to my mind. Any security risks, additional risks with this software as far as hacking or things like that?
I mean, I won't speak for Ryan.
You can send a text out to all this.
Yeah, but what I will say is I highly doubt anybody is more cautious than Ryan Judd in the whole entire world with security issues. He's extremely cautious and very. I have a lot of confidence in him that the answer to that would be no, but I can't speak for the IT department in that matter.
Perfect, thank you.
But that is one, sorry.
No, you're good, go ahead.
That is one reason that one of the reasons that the IT department is so highly involved in this.
I just have a couple questions. They should be pretty easy. So the funding for this is going to come mainly out of, is it exclusively out of power? Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then, I mean, it's kind of already been asked, but more directly, you're in charge of our power budget. Do you feel like we have enough in the power fund for this?
I would not even think about considering coming and asking for something of this nature if I didn't feel that it was, one, needed, and two, we didn't have the funds for it.
Okay.
I definitely do.
Perfect. I thought that might be your answer. If it's okay, Mayor, can I make a motion?
Well, Councilmember Blackham, did you have?
Blackham, do you have another?
No?
I like John's, kind of where he's going at. I mean, I agree with this. I think you've presented it that we all agree we like it. I think the thing we're only uncomfortable with is the ceiling part. Where is it? We don't know where it is. And it's hard, and I guess we just have to leave that up to you. And if you do screw it up or whatever, somebody will tell us, and we'll come after you for it. But
I'll be here.
so I don't know. That's the only thing.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, go ahead, thank you.
All right, then I'd like to make a motion that we approve the authorization to purchase dispatch, outage communication, and management system software.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any comments?
Friendly amendment? Can I ask for a friendly amendment to your motion?
Yes.
Would you be amiable to adding to the motion that there be at least like a report and an effort to get the lowest possible?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I mean, just an effort, yeah.
Yeah, an effort to like.
I mean, I feel like he's going to do that anyways, but if you want it in the motion.
You're going to do it anyway.
Yeah, he's going to.
Well, you mean like the lowest bid?
I'm just saying like, I mean, it just seems so weird to me, but I trust you. It's just weird, you know what I mean? It's weird throwing out a top dollar. I don't know, maybe I can't.
Well, I mean, we do have some dollars in here. Don't we have what is it, 160, 170, I can't remember.
145
145,
with
okay.
the threshold.
67 a
It
year.
was 215,000.
Yeah.
Not to exceed 215,000.
Essentially what a budget is a ceiling though, because when we exceed that ceiling, we come back to you and open the budget up. So
Yeah, I
essentially
guess
what we're
so.
asking you is for just a budget appropriation for this amount.
Maybe I'd just like a report. Maybe my amendment could be that we receive a
You will
report.
definitely get a report
That we
back.
receive a report on the, and maybe we don't need amendment on that.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just
Just
part
We'd
of it.
love you to
part
be
of the
very involved
expectation.
in how this even rolls out and how we communicate this to the public and how we start using this, because we're going to send people text messages and emails, and we want to communicate in a completely different way than we have been.
And that we don't sign anything longer than like how many years of the contract? Sorry, this is a lot of friendly, but is there, like, are most of these people requiring like a multi-year contract for the software? Like how long are we tied in?
It depends, because Brian and I had this conversation about doing a 1-year trial within maybe a 4-year, so 5-year total agreement. And I'm sure all this is negotiable, but we haven't got to the point where I think most of them are asking for 5-year commitments because they have to invest in us too. But that would be my goal, but they might push back and say no to that, so we probably have to be flexible in that as well.
Okay.
Okay, so.
I withdraw my friendly amendment.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Do we have any other comments? All right, Councilmember Blackham?
Aye. But, it's putting a lot of trust in you, Brian.
You're the man. Okay, Councilmember Oaks?
Aye.
Councilmember Jackson?
Aye.
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 Okay, good luck, Brian.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next time, put it in the damn budget, all right?
Yes, sir.
Well, it just was weird to see something not in the budget in the consent item that expensive.
I just wanted to make a point. You guys, you're awesome. We have got such a great council. And I have a question for Nick, I guess. To Mike's point, I don't want anyone on the council to ever feel like that we don't want to hear from them, okay? So I know that it's set up as, public comment, then questions, then a motion, and then, can we change how we label those discussions?
Yeah, that's,
okay.
That's in our rules of decorum, and those can be altered.
Okay, so how about if we did, instead of just questions, we had discussion, and then we have a motion, and then we have comments? How does
I
everyone
would
feel about that?
love that. I thought it was part of
You
the.
probably ought to just put it on the agenda and have that document altered the way you guys want to alter it.
Okay, I'm just wondering, though, to get a feel if you guys feel okay about that.
Yeah, I would love.
Yeah? Okay.
I thought that was part
Okay.
of the what's his buckets laws that we were trying.
Robert's Rules of Order?
Rules of
We're
Order.
much stricter than almost every other city in Utah in the way that we do things in that orderly fashion.
Okay.
Mayor Witt.
Okay.
Probably
Anyway.
before Mayor Witt, actually.
Okay. So if we
names you
feel
could say
okay with
there,
that,
but we'll leave that for another
will we
day.
put that in the next one? Okay, let's make that, yes.
Restate that then?
So it would be instead of, so we have public comment, then we would have, we normally have questions, let's just call it discussion, so we can comment or ask questions and provide history if we want to, and then a motion, and then comment. So as we make our motion, we can justify it or clarify it or whatever. Does that
That's
sound
awesome.
good to everyone? Okay.
That's way better.
Okay, all right. Thank you. So then my other council member report would just be that I appreciate everybody.
Well, we appreciate
Thank you. Anyone else have a council member report?
Yeah, I do.
Councilmember Oaks.
We had our first, well, it was our second ramp meeting last week, and it'll come before the council, but I thought that the members on the committee did a very good job of asking questions, going through. It was very well done, and I think we'll be pleased with what comes before the council in October.
Oh, good.
So.
Thank you.
That's all.
Thank you. Councilmember Blackham?
Just a question for him. So since it's coming mid-year, we've been collecting money. Are we able to spend it
Sorry, what do we?
For ramp?
for the ramp?
Oh, yes.
I have some report on that from, we actually, the amount that we projected it would be, we're coming in higher than we thought.
Nice.
And the amount that people submitted, requested for, was just $6,000 higher than what we had guessed we were getting. But Cole wisely, I think, advised the ramp committee that we don't just spend it all because we have it, right?
Cole did a great job.
Yeah.
And on different things and showing what items did not meet the intent of what they should have been, for a ramp project, because some of them came in, and we'll learn. And then going back, because we start applications for this next year real soon. We open that up, and then we'll have those discussions in first of the year. But I think, what we have with the budget this year is less than what we believe we're going to take in, but we're doing that intentionally, so.
Sweet.
Great. Okay, all right, anyone else? Nope, okay, Shane?
I just mentioned that we had that bid opening today. I'm just very excited to talk about that with everyone. We're significantly under budget. We probably have some decisions to make about that in all the different funding sources we've received. So there's probably going to be a lot more discussion about that, but just what a great problem to have.
Great, thank you, all right.
You mean the ceiling was higher?
Okay, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you, everybody.
Hey Shane, just a question now that. Are we at a disadvantage because